as a parent, it's always been interesting to me to see how my children respond differently to discipline. And with my oldest, when he was in his toddler years, if he was doing something that he shouldn't, or even thinking of doing something, and I could tell he was about to do something he shouldn't, I could just give him a look, and he would immediately know what that meant. And then my second child came along. And when he was in his toddler years, if he was going to do something he shouldn't do, or he was in the process of doing something and I gave him a look, he would look at me and he would say, "What are you looking at me for?" And it wasn't even being mean. It was just more, it didn't register with him that me looking at him and giving him kind of that knowing mom look, that was supposed to be enough, but it wasn't enough. He needed me to say, "Whatever you're about to do, stop it." And so I was thinking of that as I was reading this passage the other day, because of the power of a glance from someone who has authority over you, from someone who loves you. And in Luke 22, we read the story. There's all this lead up to where Jesus is telling Peter, "I see what you're saying to me, but you need to understand that you're gonna disown me. You're gonna choose to separate yourself from me and from being associated with me." And Peter was like, "No way, there's no way that this is going to happen." And then comes the scene where he does it. And this moment happens at the end of Luke 22. It's in the moments leading up to our verse that I want to share, but our verse is Luke 22:61. But it's where people are saying, "You're one of them." And he's like, "I am not." And then someone else says, "No, I know, you were with Jesus." "No, I wasn't." He kept denying it and denying it. And then right as he denied it the third time, just like Jesus said was going to happen, a rooster crowed. And in Luke 22:61, it says this: "The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. And then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him, 'Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times.'" And I remember the first time I read that, and because somehow I had always glossed over the fact that Jesus turned and looked at Peter. Because prior to that, I always pictured that Peter was hearing the rooster and then that was bringing him back. But in this passage, in Luke's telling of this, the rooster crows, and with the setting that they're in, Jesus turns and he looks at Peter and they make eye contact. And it's in that moment that I have to believe, because of what I know of Jesus and what I believe of how he loves and how he cares, that there wasn't condemnation in his eyes. It was just Jesus looking at his friend, his disciple, his follower, and saying, "This is that moment I warned you about. This is that moment I told you about." And it says that when that hit Peter, that he went out and he wept bitterly. I can't imagine what that felt like. But as I read this and I think of it, I think of the fact that as Jesus followers, whether we want to admit it or not, we want to create a separation where we don't have to have the eyes of our Lord looking at us when we're making decisions, when we're condemning others, when we're choosing not to follow him, when he's clearly telling us what to do. And I think sometimes we need to remember that if we're saying that we are following Jesus, that we need to be close enough and willing and ready to see him look us in the eyes. And is he looking at us and saying, "We've talked about this. You know what I've called you to." Jesus came to seek and save the lost. He is a God who is full of justice and mercy and grace and hope. And if we aren't exuding those things to a world that needs to know him, then I hope that we are allowing ourselves to be in a position where we can feel that Jesus is looking in our eyes and saying, "If you want to follow me, you need to pay attention to how I walk. and to pay attention to what I'm calling you to. Take a look at the passage in Luke 22 and just maybe ask God, what is it that you maybe need to speak into my life so that I can follow you more closely? Have a great week.